Zambia is one of the world's poorest countries. Food security is fragile and households suffer. The HIV/AIDS epidemic has exacerbated food insecurity levels, contributing to a decline in socioeconomic activity. SSAAP is a non-profit. We'll get to the entire form in a few moments. Is a non-profit working in Zambia and Sierra Leone to alleviate starvation by securing a sustainable water source, to promote sustainable agriculture and nutrition, and to promote empowerment through income-generating activities. I have with me Heather Cumming, SSAAP's founder and executive director. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before we start in, finding out what those letters stand for, I want to compliment you and the effort to to sell these beautiful, to identify and sell this beautiful art and jewelry I saw on your website.
That means so much to me. I that's a wonderful part of our project that always gets ignored because the agriculture with the food security and the water is so it's such a huge project
Absolutely.
that we often forget the art part. But thank you for that. My daughter
Mhm.
makes some of the jewelry for her animal rights cause, and the other
Yeah, great.
jewelry and crafts and things like that are from local artisans in both of our nations in Zambia and Sierra Leone.
Yeah, wonderful. We'll get to that in a moment. Please tell us what SSAAP, SAP, stands for.
Okay. Yeah, you should make me pronounce it. Um, the Simwata Chela, Simwata Chela, Sustainable Agricultural and Arts Program. Simwata
Okay.
Chela is the way I pronounce it, but the Africans in Zambia pronounce it as Simwata Chela, and it's our chiefdom
Okay.
where we started this project more or less in 2007, 2008.
All right. And the reason for starting this, so you are based in Zambia and Sierra Leone. Is that where you live or you visit to help these people out?
What we're trying to do is we're trying to do, like, we spend a third of our time in the United States, a third of our time in Zambia, and a third of our time in Sierra Leone, but it never works that way because it
Mhm.
depends on the progress of the projects. So it's my daughter would be so angry to hear me say this, but we've probably spent 75% of her lifetime in Africa and only 25% in the States because things go so slowly here. And if you start a project and you don't finish it while you're here,
Mhm.
the chances of it getting done while you're gone are much more minimal than I would even like
Yeah.
to confess. So, therefore, what I have found is that the more time I spend here in Africa, the more beneficial it is to the project on every front. I understand the people much more deeply. I understand the way that they think. I understand the way that they feel. I understand the deep, deep, deep roots of this deep, deep, deep poverty, right? Then, with all of that knowledge in my heart, I'm able to transfer it back to the people who are supporting the project. So, primarily, our funding comes from local individual people in the United States of America, though we have some supporters in Ireland, some in India, and Israel, and Italy. A lot of eyes. Um, and but for the most part, it's funded by the United States. I would say 96% of the funding comes from the states. So I never really designed my project. It just kind of has flowed, if that makes sense, to the point where it is
Yes.
now. But what I've always wanted was a relationship, a, a
Mhm.
relationship whereby the people in Africa come to understand what these people across the world that they will probably never meet are doing for
True.
them. It's important. It's important that they understand that in the West, we work hard for our money and it doesn't grow off trees that we pluck, and that Western aid shouldn't be for squandering. That's important to me. And it's important to me that Africans have respect for people who are helping them, you know? And then the other side of it is that it's very important to me that people that are funding these projects understand the day to day challenges that people who don't have water face. It's unbelievable. And, I definitely feel like I've put myself in the situation by living here that, even though I'm not African and I never will be, the hardships that African people face, I can't get out of them either. Just by the default of living here, like
Yeah.
if we're all using a water well and it wasn't drilled or dug properly and it runs out, none of us have water. And just how, especially in Sierra Leone, where we are right now, it's beastly hot. It's like I washed my face before this so you wouldn't have to see the sweat, but it's like at all times I'm wet with sweat, and you want to bath. You feel so much better, and your mental state is so much better when you're clean. And it's just not having water, it really impacts someone's psychology, their state of mind and their emotional state and their everything. And so I need to tell the story of these people here. I need to speak for them. I need to go to the people who are funding their projects and give them a very honest account of what we're doing here, and and what's
Mhm.
happening in the field. So it's very important to me that I'm here, that I'm not running this project from the United States, that I'm running it from Africa.
Yeah. I mean, hats off to your dedication and hats off to the passion that you have. It's not easy to live in a condition that is the way you described it. Tell us, Heather, how did you start this organization? What was the reason? Was there a light bulb moment? Was there a visit that turned into something that made you feel that you need to do something about it?
Well, so I was a United States Peace Corps volunteer in Zambia from 2004 to 2006. I finished my service, but I never felt like I could leave. The 2 years of Peace Corps in the end is really short. It's a tease. And I felt it was a tease to the local people because at the end of the day, a year in Africa is like a month in the States. Like it's just things, it takes so long to get things done and to do things effectively because implementation of change is a seed that grows within you. It's something you can talk to people about, but you can't change anyone. You can't change anyone, and why would you want to?
Mhm.
You have to work with people so that they want to change on their own and in the ways that they want to change. It has to be indigenous of them and their internal selves. So as Peace Corps was coming to an end, I was thinking to myself, I just got started. I've been in this village for
Mhm.
2 years. I know who I can trust. I know who's really, really shady. I know, I feel like I can speak the language to the point that people can understand me. Why am I leaving? So it was like somebody ripped my heart out when I had to leave. I felt like this is wrong in every way. So I had been gone for,
Mhm.
I want to say, less than a year. I went back to the States
Mhm.
for like 3 months. I was 26 at the time. Now I'm 43. Um, And I went back to the States. Then I went to Nepal to teach monks how to speak English. Another long story. But I
Very.
was living at an altitude of 14,000 feet collecting mail from this little post office in the middle of nowhere. And what was coming to me was correspondences, letters from people in my village in Zambia. And they said, "We need you to come back. We need you to come back. We
Oh,
need you to stay with us forever. Stay with us forever and help
oh,
us with our deepest issue, which is that we are starving. Why are we starving? We don't have food, but why do we not have food? We don't have water." They went to the extent of selling cattle to Western Union me money for a plane ticket. So my project started with them. It started with them asking me to come and help them. And so I just went there and showed up like a sponge, or, you know, like utter humility of, how can I help you? What do you want from me? How do I serve you in the best way possible? And that's when they explained to me, like, we know you don't really understand our issues. We know that you lived with us for 2 years, but you still don't understand the root of our problem. And it's because we don't have water. So if you can help us put water in as many of our communities as possible, we will not suffer the way that you see us suffering ever again. And what's so funny is that,
that is
I
amazing.
started this project when I was about, let's say, 27, 28 years old. The village where I lived in Zambia didn't have a water well. We were taking water from the river. And I had this nice Peace Corps water filter that Peace Corps let me keep when my service was over. So I had that benefit that the local people didn't have. I gave birth to my daughter when I was 30. And I said to myself, I don't know what we're going to do, because I'm never going to give my daughter river water. Like, if I'm doing this to myself, that's my own thing, but I'm not going to do that to my infant baby. So I brought her back to the village when she was 7 months old. I exclusively breastfed her, which provided nutrients, hydration. She didn't need water. Took her back to the States when she turned 1. And then just before she turned 2, I brought her back to Zambia. And in that year, a missionary
Wow.
organization funded the first water well for SAP, for SSAAP. And I said, I know where it's going. It's going in my village. So my little girl, who's now 13, has never known the village without a water well. And the family that we live next door to, their great grandparents, they're old now. We always laugh about how my child and their great grandchildren will never even have the same life that we had
True,
with no water.
true.
Because as the dry season lingers, the water source dries up. And my mother came to visit in October, which is the heart of the dry season in Zambia. And there was a line of probably 100 women. We were waiting for the earth to flush water back out through the soil with a little dish. They let my mother and I go to the front of the line because they knew that they didn't want us to suffer. And we put a little dish in a hole of water that was probably the color of chocolate ice cream. And we used that to fill our container. And my mother sat there and cried. And, these are the kinds of experiences that, if I have them and if I'm strong enough to suffer through them, then I can share those with people, and it gives them a perspective of where does the poverty in Africa come from? There's a multitude of reasons that we have it, but if every citizen here had water, there's no way that this continent would be the poorest continent on the planet. There's no way.
So, tell me, what are the reasons? I mean, is it the natural topography that is that way, or is it the lack of government initiative that does not provide people with water?
Thank you. Yeah. We had an engineer that came to help us for 5 years in a row. He brought a group of students and he always said to me, Heather, why are these people living in areas that don't have water? And I said, that's a great question. Part of the issue is that it's traditional land, it's
Right.
ancestral land that they inherit,
Correct.
through their.
And they don't want to leave it. Correct.
Exactly, exactly, and it's their land. So that's part of the issue because obviously some land isn't going to have water and some of it will and some of it will have an abundance depending on if there's an aquifer and but the greater issue that I see is a failure of, yeah, the government. It would be entirely possible for the government to use. They have more than enough money in every African nation that I've ever visited, and specifically the two that I work in, which is Zambia and Sierra Leone. The government has ample funds that they could use to do water projects and help the most remote people in their nations get access to clean water. They don't do that. They don't do
Mhm.
that. They don't feel that it's their responsibility, perhaps. And
Mhm.
then, government funding is used on things like big vehicles, and the ministers and the presidents and all of that have, gluttonously
Mhm.
huge homes. And I mean, the whole that's the cycle of corruption. Um, then on a deeper level, why should we wait for the government to help us with anything? Why
Right.
don't these people take initiative? And
Correct.
so that's like so I've been doing this now, if you count Peace Corps, almost 20 years. 19 years if you count my Peace
That's
Corps
a long
experience.
time.
Um, if you where I've come to with my work is that if they want true change, if they want true impact, if they want to move out of this crippling poverty, toxic poverty, they have to take initiative. And that's why we seek
Yes.
partnerships with communities that are not lazy, looking for handouts, you know, trying to get as much as they can from our project without giving anything back.
Mhm.
We're trying to
Mhm.
encourage a system that reflects nature. There is nothing
Okay.
in nature that gives without receiving. You know, receiving is more or less a feminine principle that many of us in the West are very uncomfortable with, taking help. In Africa, they're more than happy to take it. And whether or not that's due to centuries of slavery and colonialization, and it's sort of like payback, like we'll take whatever you're giving us and we don't have to give anything back. I understand how that mentality came up, but what the people should start realizing is that that mentality is diving them deeper and deeper into this quarry of poverty. So it's there's come a time, and I feel the time is now, that we have to work in partnership in all things. And what I tell these villages, um, with the help of a good translator, is that there's nothing like you go to the ocean and the water, unless it's a tsunami, but even that, the water goes out, it comes in. The tide goes out, it comes in. And, a tree that loses its leaves does so that in the spring it can flower and produce fruit, and that the cycle, it gives and receives. And so I want more for Africa. I love it with my entire being, and I want more for it than where it's at right now. And there's no reason for it anymore. There's no reason to be stuck in this cycle of poverty. You know, um, I want them to move out of it.
Right. So it's a very intense situation that you are in, and you've been there for a very long time. So, have you developed certain programs which are specific to, say, water, say, food? Are they growing their own food? If so, do you have partners in the local community? How does this work?
Yeah. So in Zambia, we live in a very very remote area in Simwatachela Chiefdom, and then in 2021 we acquired land from one chief and possibly even two more chiefs, a gift of deed, a land gift of deed, to basically they donate land to the project and then we use the land for the project. So our first, we call it a water reticulation system, just to sound smart, but it's a simple irrigation system, which is basically um, more or less a sprinkler system. It's a very incredible sprinkler system that uses a drilled water well, say 65 to 80 meters deep, through a submersible pump and large solar panels. It pumps the water out of the ground and up into a huge tank. And then what we can do is we can use the water in that tank to basically irrigate fields. Some of our donors wanted us to do like a drip irrigation system. And I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You don't teach a kindergartner algebra. Like, I mean, these people they don't have any irrigation system. They're depending on rainwater. With the challenges of global climate change, what I've noticed in Zambia, because we're near to the Namib Desert and the Kalahari, and we're getting a longer and longer dry season and a shorter and shorter wet rainy season. And the people are just depending on rainfall to grow their crops for the entire year. And watching people that you love in the village die of starvation, specifically young children and elderly people, um, has moved past the point of being tragic and sad. Now it's just fire and fuel in my oven that's like, we need to change this. We need to change this. So we started our first water reticulation system in Zambia in 2021. And what we're hoping to do is just organize the local people if they want to work in co-ops, if they want to work, like a lot of times the women have women's clubs, the men have associations. However they want to do it, it's their project. And just the land that we were given, I think 22 hectares of land in Choma chiefdom in Zambia, which is next to Simwatachela chiefdom. It's massive. And let them grow more food because they have the skills. They have so much more knowledge
Mhm.
than I'll ever have. If all that they need from my project is help with a simple irrigation system, it's totally doable, you know. So what we're trying to do is work first with the water. Where's the reliable, sustainable water source? Okay. We get a water well, then from there, even the water well is better than nothing because you can hand water a small produce field: sunflower, maize, tomatoes, cucumbers, melons, whatever it is. So hand watering something is the next step up. And then after that, we're doing the simple irrigation system. And it has to be simple because if it breaks, they got to know how to fix it.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
want people to know what they're doing so that it takes more of the responsibility off of me and gives more back to them. And ultimately, that's what we want: is we want them to take responsibility for their own change.
That is wonderful, wonderful. But I know this entire thing is a big challenge for you, but I'll still ask you, what is the biggest challenge that you're facing?
On a personal level or with the project?
Both, if you don't mind sharing.
On a personal level, I don't want my daughter to hear this, but I don't like African food. I've never liked it. I can eat it, but I don't like it. Um, when I come here, I'm
Okay.
always hungry. I went back to the States. I gained probably 50 pounds, and in the last 4 months, it's gone. I don't like the food. Um, so sometimes when my daughter and I are in Zambia, it's very, very cheap to fly to India, which is one of my favorite places on the planet. And we'll just go there, and people say, what brings you to India? And I say, I just need to eat. I need to eat. I'm, I'm like someone like the way to my heart is through food, and I love food. So I would say that at the level of the project, what I'm dealing with in Zambia, which is a different challenge than in Sierra Leone. In Sierra Leone, the greatest challenge I have is dealing with corruption. Because when you have corruption at the government level, that always drips down into the very local, lowest levels of the grassroots society. And in 2019/2020, we funded 14 water wells. And
Mhm.
everything I know, I learned through my own mistakes. So I left the country because of COVID,
Mhm.
with the wells not being finished. And I was told they would get done when I
Okay.
came back. I came back here in
Uh-huh.
November of 2022. One of the 14 was done. Then, since November, today is the 9th of March, a second one is done. There are still 12 that are not finished. Um, three different contractors that were paid. One of them did his job. He had two wells. He's the one that did it. The other guy is working amicably with the police, to slowly pay
Oh,
back some of these funds that he's stolen. And then the third
oh
contractor
goodness.
simply ran away. And, in this part of the world, they don't have like GPS tracking devices to find the guy, and they don't have. So I've been racking my brain. And if I wasn't the most resourceful person I know, now I am, to try to figure out what do you do when, you know, 12 water wells have basically been stolen. And my project sure as heck isn't going to refund those wells because I have 12 different donors to answer to that donated those wells. How do we deal with this? And so, I mean, I've spent a lot of time. I know one of your questions asked about like structural legal, like law, you know, how do you work with
Right. How
changes
do you
with
get?
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like a big part of my job in Sierra Leone, not so much in Zambia, but in Sierra Leone, has been working with legislative stuff, teaching police about their own laws, showing up to the police station with a copy of the Constitution, reporting child abuse. This country has a lot of domestic abuse, very specifically child abuse. This is a human rights project. It's an animal rights project. We don't hurt innocent beings. We don't hurt anyone. Um, so I've had more situations than I care to count where I'm like teaching the police how to do their job. So, I mean, those are the challenges that I'm working with.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
These are huge challenges. They are huge challenges, and I don't know how you are managing, but what is the support system that you have there?
my daughter, and my mother. My mother isn't here. She's in Ohio/Colorado. Um, I've got just a couple best friends, a couple guys that I've been best friends with since I was a kid. Um, I don't, I, I spend a lot of time with myself. Like I read a lot. Um, I study different types
You are
of.
reflecting, you think about. Yeah, but I'm just, yes. When you talk about doing something on such a scale and dealing with corrupt officials, dealing with possibly even threats, what is this thing that keeps you going with the project?
The same thing that made me start it, which was that I just I follow nature. Like what I was saying, I never even chose this. It just sort of chose me, like what I was telling you previously. And then every challenge that comes creates another level of this project, like this legal
It was like
constitutional.
the universe, yeah, the universe is
Yeah,
there to help you.
the universe is
Wow.
the universe is all that I've got. The universe has provided for this project so much more than I ever could have thought. This project started with a donation of $40 from my mother's best friend slash neighbor's three grandsons. They wanted to buy a few goats. Now we're looking at this year. I have 65 water wells in Sierra Leone. Each water well is $1,000. Um, this is just a small project, but people, when you respect where the money is coming from, and you respect that it's human beings, not some huge government agency that I wrote a grant and got, $500 million, or but local people giving. We have incredible people supporting this project, and i'm I'm grateful to them every moment of being here. And I always tell them we couldn't do it without you. And they think that I'm just being polite or maybe even insincere, but I it has grown to a huge capacity.
It's
And
lovely and just amazing. What you are doing is, I can't imagine anybody dedicating an entire life to the service of, you know, other people who probably are grateful, not grateful, that's a different thing, I guess, but just wanting to do something to change the life of people and elevate them to a regular, a normal life. That itself is a huge challenge. And I think you're doing a fantastic job, Heather. I would request people who are watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, please do visit the Simvatachela Agricultural. Yeah, I got that.
you're doing great. Yeah. Yeah. Simwatachela Sustainable Agricultural
Sustainable
and Arts Program.
Agricultural Arts Program. Wonderful. And lastly, just let's talk about the arts program, and we will end this podcast.
The arts program. That's sort of my passion. I love art. Um, I'm a writer, I'm a photographer, I love art. And these people make the most incredible crafts, and it's becoming sort of like a dying art if they don't have a market. So I have incredible partners in Oregon, and every year they buy 2,000 pieces of art, pardon me, 200 pieces of art from women, only women. I've got various ways that I do fundraising when I'm in the States, and I sell local art. I try to keep the costs really low, but not too low, because I don't want people to not take it seriously. But I want the art to be affordable. I hate expensive art. It's just like, no, art should be for everyone. Um, and I love more than anything going in the village and seeing people who know how to weave beautiful baskets, um, saying, okay, I need 20. I'm there, what? And then they give me a price of like 5 cents a basket. And I'm like, I think you're cheating yourself. I think you should think about the price. But like trying to teach them also, like, what I think about Africa is that it puts itself down in a way that I want it to stop. I talk to my daughter about this all the time. She says that one day she'll be the leader of Sierra Leone, and I said, make that happen. You can be the Obama of Sierra Leone. But she always says that, like, why do my people put themselves down? And I said, I don't know, but I think that they do. A lot of people that I work with suffer from varying degrees of very deep inferiority complexes, and it makes it really hard to work with them. Um, and, I mean, we're looking at people who are quite possibly the strongest human beings on the planet. They can survive
Yeah.
conditions that I can't even look at. I can't even, I'm so pampered in my own way. Um, not from an American perspective, but through an African perspective. Like, I can cook my own food, or I can buy food, or but what I want is for what I want is for Africa to respect itself, not sell out all of its resources to China
Mm,
or
mm,
India or Lebanon or, South Africa or the United Kingdom or the United States. I want it to stop putting itself down. I was
mm,
reading a statistic, I think somebody brought my attention to it, that right now, Zambia is basically owned by China. We I'm saying we because I'm in the process of getting my Zambian citizenship. So soon I can say that I'm Zambian. I can't wait. Or I'll say that I'm African maybe. But we owe China, like, it's like some insane amount of money, because what Zambia has done is it just keeps taking out loan after loan after loan from China. And China, I think, just keeps giving it. And we're so deep in the hole that now China owns everything. They own our country. It's
mm,
modern day colonialization in a whole different way. And why?
mm.
This Zambia is home of Victoria Falls, one of the seven
Yeah,
wonders of the
we
world. It,
right. We would never. There's no way we can go to the depths of why this started and how it started, and it's that's a very
right.
long story. But it's great to know that you are making a change in Zambia and Sierra Leone. You are making a change to the lives of these people, and you are doing an amazing job. And I here would like to request all the people who are watching and listening to this, uh, if you can help out in any which way, please reach out to Heather on her website. Heather, is there some way that people can reach out to you on your website?
Very much. Our website is www.ssaap.org, O-R-G. Um, and they can just email me, or my email is ssaaPafrica@gmail.com. But yeah, I would love to work with anyone who wants to work with this. It involves
Wonderful.
us all somehow.
Absolutely, yes. We are all humans and we all need water and we all need food. Yes. Lovely talking to you, Heather. You take care.
Me too. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.